Hello and welcome to Naka's Makes. In our last video, we learned how to do a slip knot and the chain. So in this video, we are going to go to the next step and we're going to learn the single crochet. So like the last, you will need a crochet hook. This is a Boye, B-O-Y-E, aluminum hook, size I, 5.5 millimeters. And I just have a standard worsted weight, size 4 acrylic yarn. All right, so we're gonna do like we did before. We're just going to make our slip knot. So leaving a chain, you wanna leave maybe about 6 inches, or I've heard leave about a hand worth of yarn. This is so that in the end we can tie in our ends so we don't have this extra piece just hanging around. So leaving that little tail, we are going to secure our yarn in our bottom fingers. Wrap the yarn around our finger, grab our hook, slide that under and through, pull our fingers out, and tighten. So again, don't have it too tight, but you don't want a giant loop, but you want it to be able to move on there easily. All right, getting that tail end out of the way. Wrap your yarn however is comfortable for you. And we'll go for our 20 chains, and because we're doing a single crochet, we're going to add 1. So that's each row we will add 1 chain. This just makes the end, it's going to make a nice straight side. It's going to make it so it's not tight, not difficult to get into that stitch at the end. So we'll just start with that. So remember your yarn over, using your thumb and pointer to kind of guide this. There is 1. Now when we're counting, we do not count the loop that's on the hook. So that means we have 1 chain right now. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Do you see how they're pretty uniform? That's again just feeling out your tension, how hard or how much you're pulling on this top yarn, and what your fingers are doing here if you're pulling extra on the project or your hook. Just relax. There's 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All right, we have our 20 chains, and now we're going to plus 1, 21. So now, again, we're not going to count the loop that's on the hook. We're going to skip the very first chain and go into the second chain here. You're going to put your yarn, remember how we saw that you can kind of see through the chain? That is where you want to slide your hook. You're going to push your hook in there, and now you see you have 1, 2 on your hook here. You're going to yarn over and bring your yarn through the very first loop on the hook. So now you still have 2. Now you're going to yarn over and bring through 2 loops on the hook. And you have your first single crochet. You have this little like V shape here. Now you're going to go into the next one. You have 1, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, bring through 1, yarn over, bring through 2. And we're going to keep on doing this all the way to the end. Bring through 1, yarn over, bring through 2. So now you can see they're kind of taking shape. You have a row of V's here, 1, 2, 3. So keep on doing this all the way to the end. You can follow along with me, or you can fast forward to the end and we'll show you how to get into the next row. Yarn over, pull through 2. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. As you get to the end here, you're going to notice things are kind of rolling a little bit. Your finished project, or the part you're working on over here, is kind of rolling, and that's okay, that's normal. It'll even out as your project gets bigger. Over here is getting kind of silly, it's kind of wrapping around. Just make sure to straighten that as you're going through so that you get your hook into the right spot. See how it's got a twist right here? So as I get to that, I'm going to make sure to unfold that so that I put the hook where it's supposed to go. Looks like we're into the last 5 here. Now for the last stitch, you might think, am I done? I don't know. Is this a stitch? This is, when you see right next to your knot, you are going to go into this very last spot and do the same exact thing. Yarn over through 1, yarn over through 2. And that can be pulled. That's your slip knot right there at the very end, or where you started. All right, so now you have this kind of weird looking worm. You're going to continue on, and this will all straighten out, like I said, as we can make this bigger. So in order to start now, or to get into our next row, we are going to, like I said, when you're doing a single crochet, you want to chain 1. You're always at the end going to chain 1, because if you turn right now and try to go into this first stitch, you're not going to have anywhere to move. It's going to be tight. It's going to just be kind of a mess. So you want to do just 1 simple chain at the end. And now we're going to flip over our work. That tail out of the way. So now when you're looking at this, if you look on the top, you have a row of V's, like we were talking about in the last row. You have this row of V's. And now if you look at this back side where you're going to start working, you have like these bumps. And that'll kind of help guide you where to put your hook. You're going to be working in these bumps. Let me show you down a little ways. You're going to work in the bump. Your hook's going to go in the bump, and it's going to go underneath the entire V. If you can see, you have the whole V there. So you're going to go through 2 strands of yarn. Let me show you that one more time. So you're going to go between the bumps, under 2 strands of yarn. All right, so we'll get started. We already did our chain 1. We've turned our work. We're going to skip the chain, which is, okay, we don't worry about this loop. We don't count the loop that's on the hook. We're going to skip the chain 1. That's this one hanging out up here. And we're going to go into our very last stitch from the previous row. So you find the little lump, go right next to that, and you go under the V. So now you have this little V, and you have 1 chain or 1 loop on the hook. And you're going to do just like you did before. You're going to yarn over, and you're going to go underneath the entire V, both pieces. Now you have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through both. So now you're going to find the next spot. There's the lump. Go in there underneath the V. Yarn over. Pull through that V. 1, 2 chains or 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over. Pull through 2. So find your lump. Underneath the V. Yarn over. Through the V, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so there's the lump. Go next to that, you have your V, yarn over, pull through the V, 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the 2 loops. And again, you're just going to keep on doing this all the way to the end. So if you want to again follow counting. If you know that you started with 20 chains plus your 1, you want to always have 20 single crochet or whatever stitch you're doing, as long as you're not doing any increases, decreases. That's a video for a whole nother day. So make sure you are counting as you go. And you see the top again, you have the V's. So when you go into your next row, you will do the same exact thing you did this previous row. All right, when you get to the end, it does look a little silly. Things are kind of, it's a little bit pinched right at the end. It's a little bit smaller. Where the heck do you put your yarn or your hook? If you look again, you still have the V's, and you know that you've done 18 single crochet. So you have 2 V's left. That's perfect. So you will find the little lump, go through, you have your V, yarn over, through the V, yarn over, through 2. All right, then this last one, you have your turning chain or your extra chain on the end. You're going to ignore that. You're just going to go right over the lump. You go right into that V. So you still, your very last one, you have a V and 1 loop. Yarn over, through the V, yarn over, through 2. All right, and now we are at the end of this row. This would be our second row. We are going to yarn over to do 1 chain, turn your work, and you're going to do it all over again. You're going to skip the loop on here, skip your first chain, and work into your first single crochet. So even though you see a V here, that's your chain. You're going to skip the chain and work right into the last stitch of the last row. There you go. And again, you're just going to continue all the way across, and for as many rows as you need for your project. So I would recommend, you did 20 rows, maybe do, or you did 20 chains, maybe do 20 rows and see how it looks when you're all done. All right, the next video is going to be on a new stitch called the half double crochet. So check that out if you are interested in learning another stitch. So once you finish your 20 chains, so 20 stitches across and 20 rows, you should have something that looks kind of like this. It kind of looks like a mess, rolls up. It's very frustrating. There's not a lot we can do about that at this moment, but I just wanted to kind of show you what it looks like. You can see, if I can get it straight, that the edges, they're pretty straight on both sides. If yours doesn't look like this, I'm guessing yours is going to look more triangular. My suggestions for that would first be to count how many stitches you have across. You should have 20. If you don't have 20, most likely you've dropped a stitch or skipped maybe the first stitch coming in here, or you didn't go all the way to the end, so you will have an angled shape. Another thing could be your tension. If it got really tight in some spots, it could start pulling it. You can look, if you look on my project here, everything is pretty uniform. It's pretty straight. You can see the lines. Now what I want to also show you is how to count this. This is a tricky part, especially if you have darker yarn. So it's really important to try and learn on a lighter colored yarn. That way you can see the stitches a little easier. So depending on which way you're looking at it, let's see, since we finished here, we'll look, and we have 20 rows, or we should have 20 rows. If you notice, when you're looking, you have the bump, and then it's an indent, and then the bump, and an indent. So each one of these, the bump is one row, and then the indent is one row, because if you flip it over, that's where the bump is at. So when you're looking here, you go bump, indent, bump, indent. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then this would be an indent if we went again, but there would be 20. So our final row is 20. So what do you do when you get to this point? You have your loop. I always like to end with one last chain. This will kind of knot it. And then you're going to cut your yarn. I cut my tail a little bit long, so you don't need this much. I'll have to trim some of that. So you're going to get your final chain, pull your yarn all the way through, and if you give it a little bit of a tug, kind of knots it in place. So you'll need scissors at this point, of course. I'm going to trim that up a bit there. All right, so now you're going to need some needles. These plastic canvas needles by Boye, B-O-Y-E. I get this stuff, Walmart carries it for like $2. So you need plastic canvas needles. Sometimes they're called tapestry needles, darning needles. You just want what looks like a sewing needle, but is a lot thicker. It also, the eye is a lot larger as well. So this helps with threading your yarn through here. This part is probably the worst part. I thankfully have some nails that I can use to push it through. Doesn't always work the best, but you want to get it right in through here. Sometimes too, if you need, you can try and use your scissors. Do be careful if you're going to do something extra like that. Today I'm going to struggle. All right, once you finally get that darn needle on here, you're going to weave in your ends. So just coming right in here, find a spot to pull your yarn through. You don't want to pull really tight. You don't want to shrink up your project. You don't want to pull, like if I pull this through here and then keep pulling, you'll notice it pinches that. You don't want that to happen. Keep it loose. We just want to make sure that this doesn't unravel. So one way that I like to do this On something simple like this, we'll just put it through a few stitches, and then I'm going to go back. So I'm going to skip where it came out. I'm going to go right over and then go the same path right through there, right through those stitches. And then once I get there, make sure it's not too crazy, it doesn't pull. I'm going to go back through one more time. You do want to be careful with this method because it will make this section a little bit thicker. So depending on your project or if it's for somebody else, if you're selling it, do be careful for something like that. All right, so once I get it through 3 times, I think it's a nice secure way to do that. I'm just going to push this in just a little bit, grab my scissors, trim that off, kind of loosen this up a bit. And then there we go. The end is gone. Now, of course, we still have this one to do. And then that project will be complete. So this is 20 stitches across by 20 tall. So in the next video, we will do the half double crochet. Also keep a watch out for the double crochet video, as well as some project ideas, some kind of crochet with me projects. We'll do a slip knot or a chain project, and we will make a project out of single crochets.